Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
For whatever reason, people seem to think I'm the negative one of this WrestleTalk trio. I can't quite figure out why. But anywho, if there's one thing that viewers do tend to agree with me on, is that 2018 has been a terrible year for NXT call-ups. In previous years, we've seen some half-decent outings for NXT call-ups. Well, The Shield, Samoa Joe, and most of the female roster anyway. But 2018 has seen some of the most pointless and confounding call-ups seen in recent memory. Triple H once said on a conference call that WWE would never call up anyone from NXT unless they had 6 months worth of storylines ready for them. But that sure as hell can't be true when you look at what's happened this year. For the sake of clarity, we're only looking at NXT call-ups in 2018, so we won't be including Riot Squad, Mandy Rose, or Sonya Deville from last November in this list, but for the sake of completion, I'll illustrate their call-ups with this Alan Partridge shrug. And no, Nikki Cross doesn't count as it wasn't an official call-up. With that out of the way, let's dive into it. I am Luke Owen, and here are the 2018 NXT call-ups ranked from best to worst. Number 9, Sanity. During the Superstar shakeup after WrestleMania, it was announced that the team of Eric Young, Alexander Wolf, and Killian Dane, but not Nikki Cross, would be called up to the main roster as Sanity. The team had won the NXT Tag Team Championships and had amazing feuds with Undisputed Era and Authors of Pain, and were part of that incredible War Games match last November. Rumor has it that Sanity, along with the Authors of Pain, were called up as part of a master plan to introduce the first ever Tag Team Money in the Bank ladder match. But that never came to pass, and because of that, there were no plans for Sanity. Evident in the fact that they were teased for weeks on end, from April 17th until June 19th to be exact, and then came in with little fanfare. They had a short feud with the New Day that resulted in a kickoff show match at Extreme Rules, and have done nothing since. SmackDown Live really has become the land of wasted potential in the tag team division, and Sanity are perhaps the biggest failing. In fact, the only thing they've done of note since that New Day feud was come out for Nikki Cross's match on the SmackDown episode from Manchester. And no, that Survivor Series pre-show match doesn't count. And really, the only reason they were there is because they needed 5 teams and SmackDown only has 6. And even then, they were eliminated early. Whoop-de-doo. Also, nothing says chaos more than wearing matching t-shirts with the rest of the SmackDown tag team division. Sanity's main roster call-up has been frankly embarrassing. Number 8, No Way Jose. Anyone else remember that No Way Jose was an NXT call-up in 2018? Nah, me neither. Really, the only reason he's higher than Sanity on this list is there was wasted potential with them, and Jose is just, I don't know, he's No Way Jose, isn't he? Next. Number 7, Andrade Cien Almas and Zelina Vega. Going back to SmackDown for a moment, and let's look at the sad story of the main roster call-up of Andrade Cien Almas, and by extension, Zelina Vega. Almas and Vega began 2018 as the NXT champion, winning it in November from a very game Drew McIntyre, and proceeded to have one of the best matches of the whole year against Johnny Gargano at NXT TakeOver Philadelphia in January. A match so good it received the coveted 5-star rating from Big Daddy Dave Meltzer. So when it was announced he was coming up to the main roster, to SmackDown Live no less, people rejoiced. This had to be a surefire winner, right? This is a roster that has AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, Daniel Bryan, Randy Orton, Rusev, Samoa Joe, Jeff Hardy, and eventually Rey Mysterio. Surely Almas is going to be slotted right into that main event picture and put on those incredible matches we all know he can have. Well, that's not quite what happens. Instead, he's had some very good TV matches with Styles, Bryan, and Rey, but they led to nothing. No storyline, no push, no nothing. Aside from those matches, Almas has been woefully misused on SmackDown Live. He had a very short-lived feud with Rusev that led to, you guessed it, a kickoff show match. But that was more of a backdrop to the Rusev and Aiden English feud that, shockingly, went nowhere. Very poor from WWE here. Why hasn't Almas been given a US title feud? A short WWE Championship feud with Styles following that great TV match? Why wasn't he a part of the Survivor Series team? Why wasn't he in Money in the Bank? Why have Andrade Cien Almas and Zelina Vega done nothing since coming up to the main roster? Someone tell me why they've done nothing! Number 6, the IKonics. I'm afraid it's another failure for the Blue brand here, with the pointless call-ups of Peyton Royce and Billie Kay. At first it seemed like things were going to go right for the IKonics. They debuted on the SmackDown after WrestleMania and got right into the mix with the Women's Champion Charlotte Flair, and a couple of weeks later with Royal Rumble winner Asuka. They even got new merchandise with their brand new team name. But as the weeks wore on, it was quickly becoming apparent that WWE only saw Royce and Kay as comedy jobbers for the women's division. Their sole purpose was to come out and cut promos and then get beaten. The problem is, if you keep beating the people trying to get heat from the crowd, eventually that heat stops existing as fans recognize them as jokes. In fact, the only reason IKonics are above Sanity, Jose, and Almas is because at least these two have actually had pay-per-view matches. Granted, one of those was at Super Showdown, which they only got because of their place of birth, and even that was confusing as they cut a babyface promo before working the match as a heel against Naomi and Asuka. What? And the other was being part of the Evolution Battle Royal, and basically they were only a part of that because everyone who wasn't booked for the show was a part of it, and they were eliminated early. Maybe the introduction of the Women's Tag Team Championships will help IKonics, as they'll actually have something to fight for. But given how WWE have stopped caring about the men's tag belts, I wouldn't hold out much hope. Number 5, Ember Moon. Another victim of WWE's rule that women are seemingly only allowed to have one story at any given time is former NXT Women's Champion Ember Moon. Moon started out her main roster career by beating the former Raw Women's Champion Alexa Bliss in a tag match, but has since had nothing to do. It is baffling to think that Moon, someone who is having incredible matches and feuds with the likes of Asuka, Nikki Cross, IKonics, and Shayna Baszler, has yet to have a single storyline since coming to the main roster. Not one. Her only role since coming to Raw in April has been to second other wrestlers like Nia Jax or Ronda Rousey. She hasn't had an actual feud with emotions or stakes, just random matches that lead to nothing. So what was the point in bringing her up to the main roster? But I suppose you're now asking how she's ranked higher than all the other NXT call-ups that have had the same lack of story and motivation. Well, at least she's been on TV pretty much every week since coming up. She's had wins over big names, and she lasted longer in the Evolution Battle Royal, so I guess she's got that going for her? The problem Ember has is that she's on the Raw brand, which is being built around Ronda Rousey. And you've got to figure, in WWE's mind, Ember isn't as popular as Sasha Banks or Bayley, which makes her the number 4 babyface on Raw, possibly even 5 behind Natalya. Either way, let's hope there's bigger plans in place for the War Goddess in 2019. But let's be honest, she'll likely be part of the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal, along with IKonics and Zelina Vega. Good job, guys. Number 4, AOP. I tell you what, Authors of Pain, AOP, are bloody lucky they won the tag team titles, or they would be a lot lower down on this list. Let's look at what happened here. Authors of Pain were the dominant tag team down in NXT with their manager Paul Ellering. They won the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. They nearly won it a second time. They held the NXT Tag Team Championships and had awesome matches with Revival, DIY, Sanity, Undisputed Era, and more. Then they came up to the main roster, dumped Paul Ellering for some reason, lost on TV to Titus Worldwide, then went missing for months, then came back with Rockstar Spud in cosplay, got a new and less threatening name, and got involved in a feud with Bobby Roode and Chad Gable based around Drake Maverick's urine. Oh, and they won the tag belts somewhere in that mix. Belts that they won in a 2-on-1 handicap match, no less. It says a lot about the other NXT call-ups on this list when AOPP are bloody 4th. Raw has had a bad 2018 with its tag team division. I mean, WWE has as a whole, but Raw has been particularly bad. The championships went from being held by top stars like Seth Rollins and Jason Jordan and The Bar, but then went to comedy act Nicholas, to comedy tag team The Deleters of Worlds, then to comedy act The B Team. Made relevant again when they were won by Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler, who then lost them to Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, only for them to be treated like an afterthought when Seth and Dean's feud didn't need them. So AOP won them and Drake Maverick pissed himself. This act started to fall apart as soon as they ditched Paul Ellering. He was an integral part of their act, more so than we ever really gave him credit for. And without him, any credibility that they did have seemed to disappear. And with a Raw tag team division that is mostly loaded with comedy teams and jokes, it was hard to take two behemoths seriously. Number 3, Lio Rush. Haha, my man, Lio Rush! Initially called up to be part of the 205 Live brand, Rush really made a name for himself on Monday Night Raw as the hype man for Bobby Lashley. The two have become quite a good pair together, with Rush sounding like a cross between Don King and Meatwad from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and Lashley as the man who points to his butt. Okay, so maybe only half of this team is working, but I'm sure the butt thing is really making Vince McMahon laugh. Rush is higher on this list than some of the other NXT call-ups because he's actually gotten his act over, which in turn has helped Bobby Lashley get over, which is something WWE was seemingly trying their hardest to not do, making him be the setup for Braun's hot tag, the military guy, or that guy with the sisters that he loves. And not only that, we are just over 1 year since Tweetgate happened with his poorly timed joke about the release of Emma. Somehow Rush has actually survived the WWE locker room, so well done, I guess. Number 2, Buddy Murphy. You see, Buddy Murphy is high on this list because he's on 205 Live, and that's a show that's designed to get people over and make them feel like stars. It's a bit like NXT, but filmed in front of a crowd that are usually indifferent to the product. But making people feel like stars is what 205 Live does, and it did it perfectly with Buddy Murphy, who suddenly got the call-up from NXT as the juggernaut of 205. A guy who was just barely under the weight limit, and that gave him an advantage over all of the other guys on the purple brand. And quite quickly, Murphy's star began to rise, with excellent matches with Mustafa Ali and Cedric Alexander, the latter of which Murphy beat to win the Cruiserweight Championship in about the only match worth watching from Super Showdown. It's a shame WWE don't make an effort to promote 205 Live better, as Buddy Murphy would be a great asset to the Intercontinental and United States Championship pictures on either Raw or SmackDown. And number 1, Drew McIntyre. I don't think it can be argued that by far the best NXT call-up of 2018 is Drew McIntyre. But to be honest, when he was first introduced as a heel partner for Dolph Ziggler, despite his amazing babyface run in NXT, some of us were a little concerned. Thankfully, when WWE, or Vince McMahon to be precise, wants something to work, they will make it work. And while Drew has been Dolph's partner, then Braun's partner, and then Baron Corbin's partner, he has always felt like a main event player on Monday Night Raw. He's actually had pay-per-view matches, he won the tag team championships, and more importantly, he made them feel important. And he's now set to be in the mix for the Universal Championship whenever Brock Lesnar decides to show up for work again. Like the Shield, Drew was booked to look like a star from the outset. There wasn't a gradual build of random matches or meaningless kickoff shows. He was brought in and you were told from the outset, this is a main eventer and he will be a champion on this brand at some point. This is incredible, but it took until the December 3rd episode of Raw for him to get a pinfall loss. And even then he lost because Finn Balor booted him into the barricade on the outside. He's been kept incredibly strong and protected, and that has made him feel very credible in the main event. I mean, just compare Drew to the 2018 main roster booking of Andrade Cien Almas or Sanity. So congratulations, Drew. In a sea of sewage, you got your head above water. Good going. What are the best and worst moments from WWE this year according to you fine people? Find out in the Wrestle Ramble with myself and Ollie Davis by clicking the video on screen right now. I've been Luke Owen, and that was a list.